In this lesson, we're going to go over how to factor a quadratic when the leading coefficient, a, is not 1. So we will do this by using a process called factoring by grouping. So the fifth type of factoring that we have is factoring a quadratic ax squared plus bx plus c when our leading coefficient a is not 1. So the steps that we take, first we multiply a times c. Then we find what multiplies to a times c and adds up to b. Step 3, we're going to expand the middle term of the trinomial using what you got in step number 2. And then step 4, we're going to factor out common components out of each half. So you should be finding something that's in common. And then we're going to factor out what's inside the parentheses. So this part right here is the factor by grouping. So this is the factor by grouping component that we're going to use when we factor a quadratics when the leading coefficient is not 1. So have these steps out. We'll go through them. So in example 1, we have 3x squared plus 16x plus 5. Now, I always like to remind myself, what is the standard form of a quadratic? It's ax squared plus bx plus c. So what we're going to do is let's just go ahead and identify what is a, b, and c, because we're going to need all of those values to help us with this problem. So a, so in our problem, remember a is in front of x squared. So a here is 3. B is the number in front of x. Make sure to include the sign. B happens to be positive 16. And c is the constant. It's the thing without the letter. So c is 5. So we've identified what a, b, and c are. Now, if you look back at the steps that you listed there, the first step says multiply a times c. So let's do that. A times c. Well, what's a? Since we clearly identified it here, I know a is 3 and c is 5. 3 times 5. Well, that's just 15. So this here was your step 1. Your step 2 is now we're going to find the factors of 15 that add up to be our b value. Our b here is 16. So let's go ahead and list the factors of 15. They're 1 and 15 and 3 and 5. Which of those adds up to 16? 1 and 15 add up to 16. So what we're going to do is we're going to use our factors that add up to 16. We're going to use those factors to split up the 16. This is why they need to add up to our b. So I'm going to split up the 16x as positive 1x, because the 1 is positive, and positive 15x. So this is how I'm splitting up 16. So notice if I add 1x plus 15x, I get back my 16x. Then I'm going to bring down the other two. I'm going to bring down the 3x squared and the plus 5. From here, notice I have 4 terms, so I can use factor by grouping. So I'm going to group the first 2 terms together and then the second 2 terms together. So I'll factor out a common factor in the first set, and then I'll do the same in the second set here. So 3x squared plus 1x, we'll start there. There's no common number because 3 and 1 are only both divisible by 1. And then we have x squared and x. And if you don't recall, remember x squared is x times x, and x is just x. So we can pull out a common x. So just wanted you to remember that. So we're going to pull out a common x here. So I'm just going to divide everything by x. And you could think of this as x to the first if you'd like. So I didn't pull out any numbers. So this is just going to stay 3. And this is just going to stay positive 1 because I didn't pull out a number. But I did pull out an x. So x squared divided by x. Remember, you're going to subtract the bottom from the top. So 2 minus 1 is 1. So this will be x to the first. And then x divided by x, anything divided by itself is 1. And just simplify this. So 3x plus 1. So that takes care of the first group. Now I look at the second group, 15x plus 5. So between 15 and 5, those are both divisible by 5. So I'm going to put plus 5 and then divide everything here by 5. And notice this 5 here, this blue 5, doesn't have an x with it, so I can't pull out a common letter. So I'll just do 15 divided by 5 is 3, so that's 3x, and 5 divided by 5 is 1. So I'm just going to bring this down, plus 5 times 3x plus 1. So this is like, this whole process here is like your step 4. And this splitting up here was step 3. Now I'm going to pull out my common factor, which is your step 5. So you're just going to look, does this parentheses match that one? And they do. So since those match, that's your common factor. So you're looking for those parentheses to match. And then what's going to go in the second set is the x plus 5. And then that's your answer. So 3x plus 1 times x plus 5. So this was your step number 5. Example 2, 6x squared minus 11x minus 10. So again, I'm going to write out ax squared plus bx plus c, and I'm going to identify a, b, and c. The reason why I identify a, b, and c is because I know I need to use every one of those values in my problem. So my a value, number in front of x squared, is 6. My b value, number in front of x, is negative 11. Make sure to include the sign. And my c is negative 10. So I'm going to do step 1, which is to do a times c. So I'm going to do 6 times negative 10, which is negative 60. So I'm going to list the factors of negative 60. So you'd have negative 1 and 60, or 1 and negative 60. You'd have negative 2 and 30, or 2 and negative 30. You could have negative 3 and 20, or 3 and negative 20. And then you could have negative 4 and 15, or 4 and negative 15. And I'm going to stop there. If we need more, I'll go on. But this should be good. So we'll just go through and we'll check which of these add up to be negative 11. We could either put the negative with the 1 or with the 60, but we couldn't put it with both. This is why I listed it in 2 ways. So obviously these would never add up to negative 11. These won't ever add up to negative 11, and neither will these. But now 4 and 15 have a chance, because if I do 15 minus 4, I get positive 11. If I do negative 15 plus 4, I get negative 11, which is what I wanted. So I'm going to split up negative 11x as positive 4x and negative 15x. Then I bring down the 6x squared and the minus 10. And then I'm going to group them. So I'll group these two together, and I'll group these two together. Now looking at the first set, 6x squared plus 4x. The 6 and the 4 are both divisible by 2. So I could do that real quick. Divide this first set, only this first set, by 2. So 6 divided by 2 is 3, and 4 divided by 2 is 2. So there, I've factored out my 2. Now the x's. So x squared and x, hopefully this is starting to look a little bit more familiar. Those are both divisible by x to the first. So I could pull out an x to the first. So remember, it's when I divide everything by x here, just in the first set, x squared divided by x gets me x, and x divided by x is just 1. So this is going to be 2x times 3x plus 2 times 1 is 2. Now in the second set, in your second set, when you have a negative here in front of that first term, so this negative 15x, it's negative, you need to pull out the negative. When it's negative, you need to pull it out. And then 15x and 10, those just have a number because they don't both have a letter. So those are both divisible by 5. So I'm factoring out then a negative 5. So divide everything here by negative 5. So negative 15 divided by negative 5 is positive 3. x, and then negative 10 divided by negative 5 is positive 2. So I'm going to write minus 5 times 3x plus 2. Well, now I know I did this right because, look, these match. I have 3x plus 2 and 3x plus 2. So this goes in one set of parentheses. And then in the second set, I'm going to bring the 2x and the negative 5. So this is my answer, 3x plus 2 times 2x minus 5. So let's look at one more example. So example 3. So here for example 3, we have 2x squared minus 5x plus 3. So remember, ax squared plus bx plus c. So we'll identify a, b, and c. A, number in front of x squared is 2. B, number in front of x, that's negative 5. Make sure to include the sign. It's negative 5. And then c, the thing without the letter, is 3. So we identified a, b, and c. Now let's go to step 1. So step 1 wants a times c. And really from here, I want you to try to finish up the problem. So I got you started with a good amount of information. I want you to try to see if you can complete number 3 by using the steps for factoring when a is not 1. So try number 3 on your own. When you unpause the video, the answer will be here for you. So hopefully you gave this one a try. When you do this, your a times c, so starting over here, 2 times 3 is 6. So the way that you could get positive 6 is if you do 1 times 6 or negative 1 times negative 6. Those both get you positive 6. Or you could do 2 times 3 or negative 2 times negative 3. But we needed to add up to negative 5. So the only one in that list that adds up to negative 5 is the negative 2 and the negative 3. So this is how I split up negative 5. I split it up here in the green as negative 2x and then minus 3x. So I split up my 5 using those two numbers, negative 2 and negative 3. Now, you factor by grouping. So I grouped the first 2 and then the second 2. So I factored each. The first 2 I factored out of 2x, and then the second 2. Remember, if there's a negative out front of that first number, you need to pull out a negative there. So when I pull out the negative 3, I'm left with 1x minus 1. So notice my parentheses match, so I pull out the x minus 1, and the other parentheses is going to be 2x minus 3. So this is the answer, x minus 1 times 2x minus 3. There is an assignment in Math Excel called Factoring Day 2 when a is not 1. That is due on the 12th at 11:59 p.m.